for this is a career path channel. And so the idea is for people who are on different career paths to tell you a little bit about some of their experiences. And so our panelists are Milind Kulkarni from Purdue, Shan Huang from Logic Blocks, yes, and John Davis from Pure Storage. Thank you. And so what I'm going to do here, you heard a little bit about my career path. I can fill in some gaps if you have questions later. I'm going to have each one of them. I'm going to pass the mic to them and have them talk about their career path and explain where they've been.
So I kind of want to tell a little bit of the story of my career path because my career path narrative is the kind of thing where if you look at it from the outside, it seems like sort of an obvious, direct thing that is happening. And if you then turn around and look at it from the inside, from my perspective, when I was living with, there were actually a lot of different things along the way. So when we can start with the sort of frame exactly what was given about how my parents were both of the PhDs. My dad's a professor, and I'm a professor now. It's pretty obvious that that was where I was heading in my life. So I grew up in North Carolina. I went to Minnesota State University for my master's. From my bachelor's, I went straight into my PhD program at Huang. From that, I stuck around for a few years as a postdoc, because my then girlfriend now was with from October. And then I went straight to Purdue. And it feels like it's sort of completely direct linear career path. Obviously, you have academic parents. There's 6 years around that. Let me tell you what actually happened along the way. So I started at North Carolina University in 1998, which was at the height of the .com bubble. For those of you that are old enough to remember what that was. And for the first 3 years of being an educator, I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do what everybody else did. I'm going to go to science, and I'm going to go to startups, and I'm going to make millions of dollars. Go to pets.com or something. Amazingly, but because my parents are much more academically inclined, they were like, you know, maybe this is not the best idea, and they sort of said, why don't you go to grad school? Think about going to grad school. And so I went to grad school. So that was just one step, right? That I was just thinking about doing a startup, and then I went to grad school. So it's a bit of a story of doing that. But I went to grad school, and I was in grad school. And when I was in grad school, Barry brought up the imposter syndrome, and that hit me really hard. And for the first, if you look at my CV, you can see this. In the first 4 years of grad school, I had no money. I was working on what I thought was an interesting problem, but I wasn't making a lot of progress. Things were very slow, and I wasn't really getting anywhere. And I was like, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe what I should do is get a master's, or just get like sort of a cheapo PhD and get an industry. Cheapo here means like just do the bare minimum necessary to get a PhD. And that was my plan. And then in 2007, things just sort of clicked. And there's a story there too. Things clicked, and it started sort of working for me. And I wound up postdoc conversations out. I went on to John Marshall in 2009. That's the end of the next bubble, which is the real estate bubble. The market was terrible, but I got lucky and got a job at Purdue. Not actually computer science. I'm an electrical engineering. But it's been great. And so I wound up sort of in exactly the place that you might have thought that I was going to wind up, which is sort of this at the sort of 10,000-foot level. But there were a lot of twists and turns along the way. But anyway, I'm representing the academic career path.
So my next question, I'm going to go a little bit out of order, is for each one of you to say in what ways are your programming language background and the things you learned in grad school critical to your day-to-day job? And the things you learn in grad school could be anything.
I can just use my professor voice. Yeah, you guys hear me in the
You
back?
think this one's not on?
Okay, so you can hear me through there. Okay, so I mean, the obvious answer, right, is that I'm a faculty member doing so obviously the stuff that I did in grad school is relevant. But the non-obvious answer, and I told a couple of people, maybe I went to one-on-one. I took a lot of random classes in grad school. I took classes in numerical analysis, I took classes in algebra, I took classes in I took John Heinberg's class on big graph algorithms. I took I just took a bunch of I took a decision theory class, I took a class of teaching about uncertainty and knowledge. I took advantage of the fact that I was able to take a bunch of classes for free from some of the smartest people in the world on the topic they were teaching us. Even though it didn't seem like it was directly relevant to my research. And maybe that's one of the reasons that I didn't publish a lot for the first 4 years at all. But it turned out to be incredibly useful. Basically every week there's some problem I come across in my own work or talking to my students where it's like, oh, I remember this algorithm that I saw in some kind of class when I was in the first year grad school that turns out to be useful here. Or I remember this thing that I saw in analysis class that turns out to be useful. Just grad school is an amazing time to learn. Your research is incredibly important, but there's a lot of very, very smart people around you, both faculty members and other grad students that are not necessarily in the research area. Talk to them, learn from them. You never know when it's going to happen.
Okay. Oh. So I think the skill I found most useful is in grad school, you really learn how to dissect the problem. You really learn how to, decompose the problem into orthogonal parts of it and figure out, exactly where the problems are and which part is your solution attacking. Yeah, and that turns out to be incredibly useful in my day-to-day work as well. What you also learn is to actually tell other people why this is an important problem and why your solution matters. And this comes in every day. Every time I talk to a client, that matters. Yeah, because you're really translating it to somebody who is not as deep into the weeds as you are, and you really want them to feel like you understand their problem, and you want them to understand why your solution matters, and described at the right level of abstraction. And another thing I think you do at grad school a lot is you practice giving presentations. And that is super useful when you get into the workplace. I think, just the whole setting up the presentation and make, to Matt's point, know your audience. I think it was Matt that said that, right? I think that's just useful across the board, not just in academia. Those are probably
So I would agree with a lot of things that have been said. A lot of research is marketing, so being able to communicate effectively. Time to research is important. You hopefully will experience several times this notion that you have an idea and the time for that, and the demonstration that's right, and you know that the outcome will be great. And I've done that a couple times, and it's phenomenal. You just know you got this nugget, and it's going to be published the first time. That's fantastic. I hope it happens to everyone. There are other things which take a long time, and so that's an issue, and so you should be persistent and just be aware of that. The other thing that's important, and some other folks have said this, is you're going to pick an advisor. Or let me restate this. You should pick an advisor. The advisor should not necessarily pick you. That communication, that process is very important. And when I was at MSR, I had the privilege of co-advising several students, and that was great because I'm never the bad guy, right? I'm always the easy person to talk to. I'm not the one doing whatever. But that's something that you guys have to be aware of and learn. And so communicating with your advisor is an important thing, and learning how to do that is critical to your success in terms of understanding your deficiencies, their deficiencies. You cannot change them. They are not going to change. So either you have to change or pick someone that you match with.
I don't need a pen. So the next question, if so, if you didn't talk about it, some of you already talked about it. Were there other career paths you considered and decided to go with the thing you're currently doing, and what were the reasons behind that?
Well, I guess I already kind of talked about
Yeah.
my choices. I had some academic offers, and to be completely frank, if I had gotten an offer from IBM TJ Watson, I probably would have taken it. I had such a good time there as an intern, but I didn't, so that wasn't a choice. And then there's Logic Blocks, and that was the only industry place that I considered. And I think I actually did, in this case, draw a little chart of the pros and cons of my work. And I think typically I don't like that approach because I think that's trying to quantize something that really can't be analyzing that way. But in this case, what was really most important to me is, am I working on a problem that's exciting to me? And I was. And am I going to have kind of the quote unquote freedom to do it? And I really felt like I had a supported leadership that was going to let me work on the problem and solve it the right way. So I ended up going for it.
Anybody else want to comment on things they ruled out?
So, I was coming from a hardware background, and one of the frustrations that I experienced in publications was that if you were building a system, you had to build the system. You had to build the hardware before you could publish. And a lot of the reviews were, hey, that's a nice idea, come back when it actually works. So when I graduated Stanford, I didn't have a strong publication record to do an academic job. There was no point in doing that. I also wanted to be in a particular geographic location, being in the Bay Area. And so when I interviewed a bunch of different places, from startups to academic research labs and industry. And Microsoft gave me the most freedom to do whatever I wanted and work with people that are amazing, right? I mean, the folks that founded MSR started Xerox PARC, they started DexCert. So it gave me a visibility into that and the opportunity just to kind of rub shoulders with giants. And so that was kind of my thing in that sense. Google was also exciting. I've known a bunch of people for many years that worked there, and when I first graduated and interviewed, I didn't have visibility to know that I would work with them, so that was off the table. So it just seemed to be the right option for me, and still stay in an academic environment, and that was fantastic.
So I've got maybe two things to say, and they're both actually from end of undergrad, beginning of grad school. So one was, Matthias in his talk, which I really enjoyed, mentioned that you have to love PL. But I actually didn't love PL coming out of undergrad. I didn't really know what I wanted to do coming out of undergrad. I had two really great experiences with sort of what I consider undergraduate mentors. One who did architecture, and one who did artificial intelligence. So this way, and my statement of purpose kind of said, here's two things that I really like, I don't know which one of them I want to do, which is not the most focused statement of purpose you can write for grad school. But Cornell took a flyer on me and let me in anyway. And then I happened to take Keshev's compilers class and just really enjoyed it, and so I kind of went up to him that summer and said, can I work with you? And so that was just completely, I never thought I would wind up in compilers and PL, and that's where I wound up. So that's one thing. The other thing is maybe more of a funny story, which is coming out of undergrad, the dot-com bubble. Just first I was going to grad school, but one of my friends was a really good mobile programmer, and this was back before the days of smartphones and stuff, but Google hired him. Google was just starting up then, it was still pretty small. And for the entire first 2 years I was in grad school, he kept telling me, hey, Google's doing a lot of really cool stuff, you should come work for us. You should come work there with me. And the dot-com bubble was just first, and I was like, no, I'm going to see how this grad school thing plays out. And that's why I'm talking to you here now instead of like on a yacht somewhere.
So with the last few minutes that we have, I'd like to take questions from the audience, and you can ask whatever you give us. Questions from the audience? Yeah, go for it.
So I have a question for the audience. So a lot of you are, I guess, either like senior level undergrads, early PhD students, master's students. How many of you are thinking academia, and then afterwards, how many people are thinking something like industry or industry research? So who's thinking academia? And who's thinking not academia? Nobody wants to, or not as many people are willing to admit it, maybe, at PLDI, I don't know.
Yeah, well, so because of the kind of work we do, we actually publish now more in database conferences like Sigmod and Pods and VLDB and whatnot. But we actually encourage publication. I can't say that all companies will encourage that, but I think it exists.
So there's companies like Microsoft and Microsoft Research that have that. And I'm speaking to this 3 years post the process. Catherine actually probably can speak to this better, but they split up the lab into kind of advanced development, Microsoft.next, and fundamental research. And so you have the opportunities to publish in both of those cases. There's a bunch of other companies, Samsung, VMware, and the Bay Area that started labs that do that. That's their main goal, is to publish. There's a tension between products and publishing and technology transfer that happens there. And so that's one of the things that you just have to be aware of, but those can be very exciting experiences and are as close to the academic role as possible. The main difference, though, between being a professor and an academic role is the interaction with students. So it only happens, for a 3-month period for the internship. So that's where it's much more condensed. I was fortunate to co-advise students as well, so I had a much more regular schedule. That's not necessarily the case. So you can make it what you want. If you are exceptional, you can do whatever you want. So if you get to that level, you can kind of write your own.
Can I answer that a little bit? First of all, I don't think this is a decision that you guys have to make anytime soon, right? You can make it at the last minute, like I did. But second of all, I think you should ask yourselves, why do you think the ability to publish is important? Is it really that you want to work on interesting problems and then you want to see that problem having some impact in the world? Publication is one way to do it, but that's not the only way.
Question?
I think it's different for different people, right? So first of all, not everybody makes that transition, right? So, to repeat the question. I mentioned early on that my first several years in grad school were not terribly productive. I didn't publish. I felt like things weren't working out that well for me, and then something clicked. Part of it is that success builds on success. Once something clicked and I saw that first thing that was like, hey, this is good. And by the way, Catherine was the program chair of that PLDI where my first paper was published. So that was kind of, you definitely get credit. Well, what was nice is that the PC meeting was happening in Austin, and so she literally just walked out to my lab after the PC meeting was over and said congratulations. And so that was the best way you could find out about your first major conference paper getting published. Right, so part of it is that success builds on success, right? That first paper gets published and you can sort of see these things going and you can sort of build on that moment. And, you get this momentum, and that helps a lot. For me, and I actually just sort of hinted at it, I really loved my time at Cornell. Like, Ithaca's a great place. I had a lot of great friends and a lot of great colleagues, and there's amazing faculty and stuff there. But something about being in Austin clicked for me in a different way. There were more people that were doing more systems-y stuff. Cornell is a fairly theoretical place. I met my wife there. That probably helped a lot. And so I think I was just sort of in a better place mentally also. And that made a big difference for me. But a big part of it, right, is that there's a lot of stuff to learn, to how to write a good paper, how to do good research, and things like that. And it can take a while. Some people manage to hit the ground running and they get that first paper out in their first year, those first 2 years. Not everybody does.
So I think just to be more specific, the advisor, the group, the school will determine a lot of those things. So Stanford on the CS side, there are 4 class requirements. One of those can be golf. On the EE side, there are 27 class requirements. All right, so just the program that you pick matters. If you go to Berkeley, Berkeley in the CS system side has a 5-year lab cadence. If you get in at the beginning of that, you are in a pipeline to define work, define papers, and work as a team to get to those things. So you really need to be, as I mentioned before, in terms of picking your advisor, you really need to understand what they're working with, what they do. Do they get you into that pipeline early? Are they going to have a senior student mentor a younger student? All those things to get you to the point where you understand how to go from idea to realization of research. So, some of this stuff is just luck if you don't know what you're looking for. Some of it is more meaningful. And if you take grasp of what you want, if you want to be on that track, identify people that do that, institutions that do that, research groups that do that, all the way down to the advisor.
I think we have to cut it off here and take a break. So let's thank all the panelists